The ancient Romans believed that the god they called Vulcan resided beneath the volcano Vesuvius, where he was metalsmith to the gods. There he fabricated the sacred armor worn by mythic warriors into battle. After the battles, that armor was itself repurposed and melted down to create statues commemorating their heroic exploits. Eventually, even these statues would themselves be melted down to create weaponry for the next generation of warriors. The imagery and aesthetics may have changed over the millennia, but the processes by which we create art forged in flame remains very much the same. In this episode, we will examine the works of two such volcanic sculptors, Richard Heisland and Brian Wedgwood, two heavy metal masters of the underworld of art.
What I'm doing is using a lot of found objects that you might come across in a scrapyard. I like to use some of what the pieces offer. You know, they come with a certain shape or a texture, and a lot of what you find is what dictates where the piece is going to go. Kind of go through and select pieces that I think might go together and make a composition or you know, work an idea up. For me, it's kind of like working a puzzle, you know, like a jigsaw puzzle, where you put the pieces together until you figure out how it's going to work together and how it's going to kind of click, you know.
We're here today in Mission, Texas, with sculptor Richard Heisland. He's a professor of fine art and sculpture at UTPA. Richard, thank you for joining us here today.
I appreciate the opportunity to exhibit in this space. Thank the Upper Valley Art League for all of this.
Well, you've been working steel for a very long time. Why don't you tell us a little bit about how you came to focus on steel as your medium of choice?
Okay. Actually, steel is one of several mediums that I work on, and it's not the exclusive one, but I do enjoy it very much, and this looked like an opportunity to really concentrate on steel for the show. And my wife was pushing too. She said, you know, you've got this big pile of iron in the backyard. Come on now, let's do something about this. And so I admitted that this was time. You know, we need to really get down to it.
As I look around here, a lot of these works are very twisted and really distorted. You've used the term Baroque to describe them.
Yes.
Can you put that in a little bit of a context? When we think of Baroque and the Rococo and 18th
Yes.
century France, twisted steel isn't necessarily the first thing that comes to
Right.
mind.
Not too much steel around then, is there?
But you want to explain a little bit why that term Baroque applies to these works?
To me, it has more to do with the shape and the feeling, not so much with the fact that, like you said, how much steel is there. But I do like the shapes that are generated by the present-day machinery that are in the scrapyards. The cutting, the twisting, the tearing, and these things are just there for the taking if you can open your eyes a little bit and examine what the possibilities might be, and that's what we were doing with this. I love the Japanese philosophy where they respect nature. They respect you know, the natural sort of found object idea, and that's what we were trying to do here. There is some, of course, change in the form and combinations. There are lots of things where we combine forms, you know, one with another to find a solution. But we're definitely taking advantage of serendipity and that sort of thing. So it kind of goes back, it jumps back to, I guess, guys like Julio Gonzalez and maybe people like that, you know. I did my stick with pop art back in the 60s. From there, it kind of went into funk art. But I never really truly exhausted the idea of what I think of as the Baroque idea. And I'm very excited what the possibilities are.
If you look at the Baroque period in history, it was a violent and turbulent time. As we look at some of your work, there's a sense of almost violence and drama to the twisting and the tearing of the metal, and the way you sort of find the object but then accentuate that drama and that sort of distortion. Is there some aspect to this work that sort of relates to our time and to our period?
That's a good question, and no doubt there is, but it's like so many things with people that do art in the time. You know, you're in the moment so much, and you think of it a certain way, and somebody outside of it, it's so apparent to them to see it a different way. And so I just kind of leave that for other people to kind of figure out. But I think there is, in my way of thinking, there is a lot of the twisted, the torn, the harsh forming of shapes and things. Part of that might have started with, you know, the Twin Tower episode and things like that. But not exclusively that. There's so much stuff that goes on in our daily lives that does that and echoes that kind of idea. But what kind of makes me kind of stand back and think about it, though, is that when I see these shapes, they're not altogether bad. You know, you think, well, gosh, this is horrible stuff. You know, you're concerning yourself with destruction and things like that, which is true. But at the same time, some of the relationships that are there, to me, have almost a certain heroic quality or a certain beauty. Maybe I'm sick of an individual or something, but it's got both aspects, I guess.
Well, you said you refer to the Asian traditions.
Yes.
And there's a sort of a yin and yang.
Yeah, exactly.
And a beauty in the decay, a beauty in the destruction.
That's it. I'm a sucker sometimes for the lyric. You know, you can probably see that in some of these. You know, like this one here is called Diana, and there's a lot of torn elements there. But there's also a lot of kind of poetry in it, and kind of lyric twists and turns and tendril kind of things that come out. And a lot of these things go back to points in my life, different aspects where I was influenced by different things. And that kind of stuff just sort of creeps in. You can't help it, you know. Sometimes it's a joke, like this one's called The Three-Legged Dog. And I don't know if you've heard the joke. The guy that walks into the bar, and you know, the dog has one eye, his ear is gone. He's only got 3 legs, you know, and he's all beat up, and he's got broken bones. And the guy behind the bar, he says, "Well, what's your dog's name?" And he's Lucky.
Yeah,
Lucky. So this is Lucky. It's kind of a scrap combination of different things that were thrown together.
You've been fascinated with time and the way time affects architecture. You've worked with architects before, and sort of the ruin of architecture and the beauty that can happen. The piece right behind us here, can you tell us a little bit about how that kind of, even the name of that piece?
That's a good point. This is a piece called Glastonbury, and if you've ever been to England and traveled, some of you might have gone to Glastonbury, or you may have heard it. It's getting a lot of notoriety nowadays as a site for concerts,
right.
Pop concerts.
Glastonbury Festival.
Glastonbury Festival, huge. Thousands of people come from all over the world. Well, the original site there was...
it was a monastery and cathedral there.
I think it was a monastery and cathedral, yeah. And Henry VIII had it torn down. with the Reformation coming in. And you can still see parts of it there when you tour that. And that's where I got the idea for this. It's sort of like a half arch, and I was fascinated with that idea.
I kind of like this. This was what directed a lot of this, and then this piece, and it seemed like it needed something, though, maybe. And I like the idea of maybe something coming back, not only coming out, but coming back the other way to counterpoint, because this kind of goes a lot this way. And I don't know, this stuff is kind of like, it's hard to describe, but it's like music. I mean, when you do something, you know that something else needs to be there to kind of balance, and it seems right to finish out. And that's kind of what's going on here with this stuff. And since it is an abstract piece, it's not like I'm looking for an ear or I'm looking for a nose or something. You know, I'm not making decisions based on that sort of thing. But and I figured, well, okay, there's maybe a good spot for it. Some nice things sort of happen here, and then this, you know. Yeah, I like to leave it open-ended so that people can come with different ideas, and all those are equally legitimate. So once you get some possible orientations here, you can go ahead and mark it. This stuff is called soapstone, and it's a very soft stone. It actually can be carved into sculpture if you want to. It's actually better than chalk because it won't burn away when you put it on there. So I'm going to hold this here and then do what's called a tack weld, which would be the first weld, just to kind of stick it there temporarily. Now, sometimes you can add just a little bit more than that, and that's all you need. By welding back there, you don't really even see the weld so much. But I'll probably fill this in from the backside a little more, you know, to give it some strength there. And that way you don't have to worry about it coming loose, coming off. But I think it's okay this way. See, the other thing I was concerned about was this orientation here. There's an awful lot of this kind of bends and leans this way, and this coming back sort of counters that and gives a little more balance to counterbalance that.